it's me, Mike, with HPDS. I will be reading through Genesis 45 in this video and doing a study in Genesis 45, Genesis chapter 45. So before I get started, I'll go ahead and do the Lord's Prayer as I normally do. So, our Father who is in heaven, hallowed be thy name. May your kingdom come and may your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Please give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us of our debt, as we forgive those in debt to us. And Lord, lead us not into temptation, but instead deliver us from the evil one. For yours is the kingdom of power and glory, Lord, forever and ever. Amen. So this video will be on Genesis 45. So let me read through an outline here. Genesis 45, we'll see that in verses 1 through 4, we're going to see that Joseph makes himself known to his brothers. So he's finally making himself known unto his brethren. And then verses 5 through 8, we're going to see that Joseph reveals God's plan. So he's going to reveal God's plan to the brothers that are still dumbfounded. They don't know what's going on. They're still very confused about the whole situation. So we'll see that Joseph reveals that to them. And then verses 9 through 24, we're going to see that Joseph, together with Pharaoh, send the brothers to retrieve Israel and their households. So after all of this is known, we're going to see that Joseph is going to send his brothers to go get his father and bring back the household to Egypt. And then in verses 25 through 28, which is the end of the chapter, we'll see that Israel is going to learn of Joseph. He's going to learn that Joseph is alive. So that's what we're going to see in chapter 45. If you remember from chapter 44, the previous chapter was Joseph's brothers left. They had gone to Egypt. They were going to sell corn. Joseph spotted them the first time around. That was a few chapters back. He sent them to go get the brothers, the youngest brother Benjamin, because Benjamin hadn't shown up. So that's exactly the chapter 43 was them. They came back with the brother. Everything was fine. Joseph served them. But chapter 44 was when they were leaving the next day after having this lunch with Joseph and after presenting Benjamin and after retrieving Simeon. In Genesis 44, the brothers leave, but Joseph had snuck in a silver cup, and they go to search for the silver cup, and sure enough, it's missing. I mean, they find it in Benjamin's sack, and Joseph is gonna make Benjamin his servant, but Judah makes a plea to Joseph there, and and that's what ends up happening. So now we're gonna go ahead and see after this plea that Judah makes. He makes a big plea to Joseph, and that's where we're at. So Genesis 45. Let me go ahead and read through that, and let's see, Genesis 45, and it reads. Then Joseph could not refrain himself before all them that stood by him, and he cried, Cause every man to go out from me. And there stood no man with him, while Joseph made himself known unto his brethren. And he wept aloud, and the Egyptians in the house of Pharaoh heard. And Joseph said unto his brethren, I am Joseph, doth my father yet live? And his brethren could not answer him, for they were troubled at his presence. And Joseph said unto his brethren, Come near to me, I pray you. And they came near. And he said, I am Joseph your brother, whom ye sold into Egypt. Now therefore be not grieved, nor angry with yourselves, that ye sold me hither. For God did send me before you to preserve life. For these 2 years hath the famine been in the land. And yet there are 5 years in the which there shall neither be earing nor harvest. And God sent me before you to preserve you a posterity in the earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance. So now it was not you that sent me hither, but God. And he hath made me a father to Pharaoh, and lord of all his house, and a ruler throughout all the land of Egypt. Haste ye and go up to my father and say unto him, Thus saith thy son Joseph, God hath made me Lord of all Egypt. Come down unto me, tarry not. And thou shalt dwell in the land of Goshen, and thou shalt be near unto me, thou and thy children, and thy children's children, and thy flocks, and thy herds, and all that thou hast. And therefore will I nourish thee, for yet there are 5 years of famine, lest thou and thy household and all that thou hast come to poverty. And behold, your eyes see, and the eyes of my brother Benjamin, that it is my mouth that speaketh unto you. And ye shall tell my father of all my glory in Egypt, and of all that ye have seen, and ye shall haste and bring down my father hither. And he fell upon his brother Benjamin's neck and wept, and Benjamin wept upon his neck. Moreover, he kissed all his brethren, and wept upon them. And after that his brethren talked with him. And the fame thereof was heard in Pharaoh's house, saying, Joseph's brethren are come. And it pleased Pharaoh well, and his servants. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, Say unto thy brethren, this do ye, lade your beasts, and go, get you unto the land of Canaan, and take your father and your households, and come unto me, and I will give you the good of the land of Egypt, and ye shall eat the fat of the land. Now thou art commanded, this do ye, take you wagons out of the land of Egypt for your little ones, and for your wives, and bring your father, and come. Also regard not your stuff, for the good of all the land of Egypt is yours. And the children of Israel did so, and Joseph gave them wagons, according to the commandment of Pharaoh, and gave them provision for the way. To all of them he gave each man changes of raiment. But to Benjamin he gave 300 pieces of silver and 5 changes of raiment. And to his father he sent after this manner: 10 asses laden with the good things of Egypt, and 10 she asses laden with corn and bread and meat for his father by the way. So he sent his brethren away, and they departed. And he said unto them, See that ye fall not out by the way. And they went up out of Egypt, and came into the land of Canaan unto Jacob their father, and told him, saying, Joseph is yet alive, and he is governor over all the land of Egypt. And Jacob's heart fainted, for he believed them not. And they told him all the words of Joseph which he had said unto them. And when he saw the wagons which Joseph had sent to carry him, the spirit of Jacob their father revived. And Israel said, It is enough, Joseph my son is yet alive. I will go and see him before I die. So that is Genesis 45 in its entirety. Genesis 45. So yeah, what did we see again? Once again, let's go through this. Basically, we see that Joseph finally he can't take it no more. He drops the charade, he drops the act. So after the whole silver cup brought the brothers back, the brothers were like, "Oh, we're all your servants," because they didn't want to be split up from Benjamin. That was the important thing, was Benjamin. They were really concerned about Benjamin not making the trip back home to Israel. so Judah, but Jacob, or Joseph, Joseph, as in his position, basically tells them, no, that's okay. I just want the one guy that had my silver cup, and that guy's name, was Benjamin, and I just want to keep him, and you guys go back to your father. So he was really, that was what his plan was originally going to be, but Judah made a stirring speech, and he really was protecting him. He, instead of, like, for example, the way they treated him so many years ago was they hated him and they got rid of him. But now, so, he's really testing their loyalty to one another. And this time, Judah really sticks up for them. The whole brother, all the brothers kind of stick together this time around. And it's just too much. This time, Joseph just can't take it no more. So he finally decides, fine, I'm going to take all of you guys. Not just my one little brother. I'm going to take all of you guys. And he reveals himself. And, they're dumbfounded. So they don't know what to make of the situation. And then he starts explaining to them who he is and how he knows them. And sure enough, he gives enough proof to them that they realize that it's him. And then he tells them, go get everybody and come over to Egypt, and I'm gonna give y'all the best parts of the land. And that's what's going on here. So I'm gonna go ahead and read through the chapter again, line by line, and we'll go through it. I'll see what the Holy Spirit brings to this, and we'll go from there. So let me go ahead and pull it up. So let's see. Once again, let's see. Joseph here, he just can't refrain himself. So, like I said, after the cup situation, after Judah makes that stirring speech, I suppose, in that last chapter, Joseph just couldn't hold it in anymore. And so he starts to cry, and he basically kind of causes a scene. He kind of breaks down here, and he tells everybody, all his servants, get out of here. Go, go, go. Everybody leave. Just so he's just there with him, Joseph by himself with the brothers, and all the Egyptian servants basically are taking, they all got to leave. And so then you could hear apparently Joseph was so, this is so emotional for Joseph. He was just crying, and everybody in the house could hear it. That's how emotional this was. This was kind of an ordeal, a big thing. Everybody's uh, the whole house, it's not a secret. Everybody's hearing about it. And so Joseph explains to them who he is, and he starts, I am Joseph, doth my father yet live? So they were telling him that he was alive, but clearly he kind of still wasn't believing them. And he did at least recognize that that was in fact Benjamin, all right. But he's still not really, sure about what these guys are telling him, obviously, because they told him that he was alive, and he took it at face value. But this time he's really making sure that I am, now you guys need to know that you guys can't lie to me, because they could have been lying for whatever reason that his dad was still alive, but he starts telling them, and he starts asking them, like really personal questions, probably explaining who he is, and he's trying to say that he's Joseph, and they're like, what do you mean you're Joseph? For they were troubled at his presence. You get what I'm saying? So they were, what do you mean you're Joseph? He's explaining, I'm Joseph. I'm Joseph. And they're like, what do you mean you're Joseph? And he's crying. It's a big, so now they were, that fear of God really is, it's showing itself to be something very strange. And, they were very afraid of this man. You got to remember that the brothers were terrified of Joseph. They didn't know what to make of Joseph. He spoke harshly the first year. He was real mean to them. Basically kidnapped and took for hostage one of the brothers, which is Simeon. And then when they come back with Benjamin, he treats them really, really well, and he gives Simeon back real quick. But then as they're leaving, and he serves them lunch, and then the next day they leave, and he overtakes them, and this is where we're basically at. He takes them, says, "Accuser, why did y'all steal from me?" And they come back, and now, like I said, it's a very tense situation. It's very tense, and they were very afraid of him. They were thinking that they might possibly die. Here they are thinking that they could possibly die, and here they're still concerned that they might possibly die. Now that they're coming to the understanding that this guy is Joseph. Um, and he explains it to them. And Joseph said unto his brother, come near to me, I pray you. And they came near, and he said, I am Joseph, your brother, whom ye sold into Egypt. Now therefore be not grieved, nor angry with yourselves that ye sold me hither. For God did send me before you to preserve life. So here we are getting into that chapter, that verse 5 through 8. So remember I said at the beginning that verses 1 through 4, we're going to be Joseph making himself known unto them. So yeah, you see that he's made himself known, and he has a little bit of convincing to do, but he convinces them by explaining that I know your brother isn't dead. That one brother that you said wasn't dead, he isn't dead, because that's me. I'm that brother. And you sold me here into Egypt. You meant to kill me, but you sold me instead. And he's telling them, so don't be angry. Now, getting into verse 5, he's explaining now that Joseph himself recognizes why God did this. Now he's, like I said, he's seen why God did this. it's part of that prophecy with the 11 sheaves that paid obeisance to the 12th sheaf, uh, which was Joseph's sheaf himself. So here they are, they need food and they've come to him, and he explains God's plan because he sees it and he understands it now. And he's telling them, don't be grieved or angry with yourselves that y'all did all that, where y'all sold me over here, because it was God that did that. He sent me before you to preserve life, is what he's telling them. And that's what that dream meant. He preserved life. The 11 sheaves paying obeisance to the 12th sheaf, Joseph's. And so here they are for these 2 years, had the famine been in the land. So just like I mentioned in the previous video, it's the second year now. It's 2 years into the famine. And he's telling them, this is part of that dream that Pharaoh had. And that was a dream back in Genesis 41. Yeah, so Genesis 41 was when Pharaoh had the dream about the 7 years, the seven kind getting eaten by the seven ugly kind, and the seven good-looking corn eaten by the seven ugly corn. Um, but so they know about that, the famine, that it's just going to get worse, and it's going to be another 5 years. It's this bad, and it's only 2 years. We're not even quite halfway through, is what he's telling them. There's still 5 years in the which there shall be neither be earing nor harvest. So he's telling them that I know that there's still going to be 5 more years of famine, and that's why God sent me here, because I'm saving you. God sent me here to preserve life for you. So remember, he's part of the promise that is given to the line of Abraham. He's part of that promise. He's one of the seeds. He's many nations. There's many kings, many, and so forth. And they're going to be a blessing to all of mankind. And, he's part of that. He's helping to preserve. God is using Joseph to preserve that promise. And this is how that promise is being preserved, even though they threw him away and tried to sell him, and were even considering killing him. God used him to preserve their family line. They could be. It's a potentially deadly situation for everybody that this famine is going to happen, and so especially if these guys, if Israel makes enemies out of the only people with food in the area, which are the Egyptians, then they're definitely going to have a bad time, and they very well may not last another 5 years. But it's only 2 years in, and they got 5 years, and that's when God brings them to this reunion. And so, look, he's telling them some more. So he's still explaining, God sent me before you to preserve you a posterity in the earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance. And that's a pretty great deliverance. They're coming on to something like what, 30, they're 32, 37. So he's like 39 years old by this point. So like 20 something years later, a couple, 22 years or so later. Um, it's a great deliverance. They thought he was dead for over 20 years now. They had forgotten about him. They had continued and kept up the lie that he's dead, he's dead, he's dead. As far as that, that was a lie that they told, and it was a lie that Israel knew or didn't know about it, and now he's just barely going to he's just barely going to learn about it. And we'll see in future chapters when he blesses the tribes that is something to keep in mind, that these brothers kept a secret their whole, this whole time. 20 some years they were, kept this secret about their brother, how they got rid of him, and that they, his father thought he was dead, and as far as they were concerned, he was dead, and it was done all at their hands. They did it. They were the ones that put him in the hole and then picked him up and sold him to the Ishmaelites. That was all them. So, that's, like I said, this is a lie that they kept up, and it's going to be something that makes you wonder how many other lies were they keeping. But here goes, they keep going. So now it was not you. So he's explaining still, like I said, verses 5 through 8, he's explaining God's plan. And he's saying that it wasn't you that did this, it was God ultimately that did this, that sent me here. It wasn't you, but God. And he made me a father to Pharaoh and lord of all his house and a ruler throughout all of the land of Egypt. So he's saying God sent me here and he's put me in this powerful position. I've been put into a powerful position. And he's telling them, after he explains that I'm your brother, gives them, does a little convincing. After they didn't understand why there's clearly they had some problems and some run-ins with him, and they didn't understand why it was all happening. And now they're coming to the understanding and to the realization as to why this man has been acting the way he's been acting, and why he made him bring his brother, and why he asked them about their father, and so forth. So now they really understand what's going on. And so we'll see for the next few verses from 9 to 24 that he's basically, they've learned all this, and now Joseph is telling them, go get my dad, go get my father, and bring everybody, bring the whole household to me. And so that's what he's saying. So haste ye and go up to my father and say unto them, your son is alive. God had made me Lord of all of Egypt. Come down unto me, tarry not. So go get my father, bring him to me. Tarry not. Don't hurry. Don't take too long. Don't lounge about. Come right away. And you will thou means you like plural. No, that's actually in you like singular. And you shall dwell in the land of Goshen. Still talking to his father. He's sending them a message, and he's telling them, tell my father that your son Joseph says this, that made me Lord of all of Egypt. Come unto me, tarry not, and thou shalt dwell in the land of Goshen. So now they're getting the land of Goshen coming to them. So the land of Goshen is, let's see, you could actually see it on a bunch of maps. Look at nope, that's images. So you can see where it is in many of these maps. Egypt, Goshen, so it's right here, right there on that. There's a few rivers. One of them is the Nile River, I believe. Goshen is right there. So they're up over here. At this time, here's Jerusalem. And I know it's not the greatest picture. I'm looking at it. Let's see. Open image. Here it is. This is a pretty good picture. I'll go ahead and save this image as yep, Exodus 1 gift. So I'll open it like that. And here we have Lower Egypt, the land of Goshen. So it's kind of, it's into Egypt. And this is where he's going to put him. And you'll notice, look, it's real well watered, it looks like. And they're going to explain it. He's giving him, he's calling it quite a bit, good land right there. Good, it's a good area right there. And you're going to be near to me, you and your children and your children's children and your flocks and your herds and all that you have, is what he's telling them. So he's telling them, you're gonna come live, and you're gonna, all your children, all your family, you're gonna come, bring everything, and there will I nourish you. As your son, I will nourish you, because there are still 5 years of famine. And come to me, and so that I'll nourish you, so that you don't become poor and come into poverty because of all of this famine. That's what's going to end up happening. If you guys stay out there, you might survive, but you're probably going to come to poverty, because you're going to have to buy all the food from wherever you can. You're going to, and you might, that's what he's saying. Come and I'll nourish you. There's 5 years of famine still on its way. And he goes, look, and behold, your eyes see in the eyes of my brother Benjamin that it is my mouth that speaketh. So he's explaining that. Go tell him and make sure he believes you, because you all see me. I'm here. I'm proving it to you. This isn't some sort of crazy thing that's unreal. It's not unreal. I'm not playing any more jokes on you. This is me. You all know it's me. Now go get my father. and then go do that and tell him about all my glory in Egypt and everything that you've seen. And you're gonna hurry and bring my, like he's just, it's really, like I said, he's really, that's what it's going on. He's really excited. Everybody's, it's been an emotional time. It's, been up and down. They've had some ups and downs in this reunion, and now it's getting to like a very big up where they're all excited. They're basically the brothers, even though they've done this, and they're hearing about this, and so however it is that they feel, they're still excited because at the end of the day, they are being saved by God. They thought that they very well may be dying. They thought they were afraid of this man. They thought that he might kill them, that he might execute them one way or another, or imprison them, something along those lines. They're terrified, and now they're finding out that they're actually going to be saved. And more than that, they're getting like a royal treatment over here. It turns out that the whole Pharaoh of Egypt practically is their brother, and they didn't even know it this whole time. And so you see them; they're weeping. He fell upon Brenda. They're basically hugging and crying, and they're everybody. It's a reunion. It's a family reunion of something that they didn't think was possible. They didn't know it was gonna happen. It was just sudden. It was unexpected. Uh, and he kissed all his brothers and he wept upon them. And then after that, they all talked with him, and they all kind of catch up for a little while, and they figure out what happens, and I'm sure that's everything what's going on, and but everybody heard, even everybody in the Pharaoh's house. So we see going continuing forward that the Pharaoh's house, it's not a secret. It was obviously such an emotional thing that the people in his household were probably concerned that Joseph was in this other room crying with all these other people that he said had stolen from him, and they don't know what's going on here, and so now they're finding. Look, they hear, and Pharaoh said unto and the fame was heard that Pharaoh's heard. They finally hear that. Apparently those are Joseph's brothers. His brothers have come, and so Joseph's brothers have come, and everybody was like, oh well, that's really nice. That's really cool. They didn't, they were all very pleased. They were concerned for a little while, and now they were. Oh, it's his brothers. No wonder why it's so emotional over there. And so the Pharaoh tells him, he shows up in the excitement. The Pharaoh shows up and he says, "Yeah, go ahead and do that. Go tell your brothers to, get on their animals and go back to Canaan and take your father and your households and come unto me, and I will give you the good of the land, and you'll eat of the fat of the land." So that's what the Pharaoh's saying. Yeah, this is a good idea. Go get your family. Joseph, if your brothers have showed up and you found your family, that's great. Now go bring them. It pleases everybody because Joseph is beloved at this point. He's been sent by God, and he's saved the people through because God was there with him, and he saved the whole. In fact, Pharaoh's rich because of him. Pharaoh owns everything. Well, he will soon. We'll see. Read in the next chapters, and it's all thanks to Joseph. Joseph has really increased the household of the Pharaoh, and he's really just been just a blessing from God. And Pharaoh, is treating Joseph nicely and well because of it. He's basically treating him like he treats himself. And so they go, and just like he says, the Pharaoh tells them, and then he gives them a command. Now thou art commanded, this do ye. Take you wagons out of the land of Egypt for your little ones and for your wives, and bring your father and come. And he's telling them, you know what? It's not even it's go ahead, and he gives commandments. These are official commands. You guys are gonna come, and this is happening. This isn't a suggestion. This is happening. And they go and they get the wagons, and the wagons are for the children and the wives, and also the father, since he's pretty old at this point. And he's telling them, and don't worry about your things. Everything in Egypt is going to be yours. You guys are coming. You guys are royalty, apparently. And so that's what they did. The children of Israel did so, and Joseph gave them wagons according to the commandment of Pharaoh. So you see, Pharaoh had given commandments. He said, "This isn't even a suggestion. You guys are doing it. You found your family. Bring your family. That's a commandment. That's a command," says the Pharaoh, and he sends them away and he gives them provision, and so now they're really leaving. So at the beginning of Genesis 44, the brothers were leaving and they were going back home to their father, but they get held up for this whole situation, and now they're going back again. So now they're finally really going back, and but they got all kinds of stuff this time around, and there's a big excitement. There's some uh, Israel's going to be very excited about this news, and they have a whole bunch of stuff they've got. But look, he gives them all raiments, he gives them clothes. But here we see that Benjamin is favored yet again, and he actually gets 300 pieces of silver and 5 changes of raiment. So just like in the last chapter, Genesis 44, we read that he was also given 5 times the amount of food as anybody else, if you remember that. Well, that was in Genesis 43, not 44. In Genesis 43, that's when that happened. Let's see. Yeah, he gave them in the last verse, Genesis 43, verse 34, it reads, "And he took and sent messes unto them from before him, but Benjamin's mess was 5 times so much as any of theirs, and they drank and were merry with him." So even then he was favoring him with 5 times as much food, and now he's giving them 300 pieces of silver and 5 pieces of clothing. So they all got new clothes of new clothings, but he got 5 pairs of clothing. And so yeah, and then they sent. That's how they. That's how they returned to his father. And to his father he sent after this manner. Oh, and he sends to his father 10 asses laden with good things, and she asses laden with corn and bread and meat, for his father, by the way. So he sent his father a whole bunch of stuff, 20 whole horses, or donkeys or whatever it was that the asses, 20 whole of them, 10 male, 10 female, and they're all carrying a bunch of stuff. Uh, and that's all for his father. And so there they go. So he sent his brethren. Like I said, they're finally leaving, and he tells them, "See that ye fall not out by the way." And he's telling them, "You better come back. Don't you don't not come back. That'd be falling out by the way. So better come back." He's kind of he's really excited about this. And they go up out of Egypt. They go back to Canaan. They go to Jacob, their father, and they tell him, "Hey, Joseph is yet alive, and he is governor over all." So they have to tell him. They explain to him, and I'm sure when they come explaining, everybody's real excited, and they probably have to explain what's going on. And Jacob's heart fainted because at first, of course, it's one of those situations he doesn't believe it. It's like, I don't believe it. And they have to do some explaining, and they told him all the words, and then they show him all the wagons and all so of course they bring him all kinds of proof. There's no way that they took the money for this. There's no way that they could have come back with any of this, and here they're coming back and they're telling them why they have this, and it's because of Joseph's still alive, and turns out he's the governor over all of the land of Egypt. And so the spirit of of Jacob, their father, revives. So he just starts being a happier guy all of a sudden. He's excited. He's happy. And Israel said, "It is enough that Joseph, my son, is yet alive. I will go and see him before I die." So he's saying, oh, he's so happy. I don't care about all of whatever happened and what but it's just good enough that he's alive. And he goes, "I'm going to go see him before I die." So that's Genesis 45. And yeah, once again, like I said, that's there's a lot. It's an emotional time. It's been very emotional. Um, that it's been very emotional for everybody. That's what's really going on. But uh, they go back and they have to explain. They explain to Jacob, which is Israel. They explain to Israel what happened, and how this great blessing has been put upon them, that now suddenly their lives are they're saved. it's a great deliverance because there's a huge famine going on, and this huge famine just ends up being like their golden ticket. God gives them their golden ticket here. You know, the concept of it was going to be rough for these guys. Um, and they were really concerned about how rough things were going for them because now we remember a few chapters earlier, you know, the Pharaoh basically imprisoned their brother Simeon, so Simeon was locked up. Uh, they go back. There's no food. They have to go make, you know, they have to go take their youngest brothers. So they were really concerned. There's a lot of bad things going on. Things weren't looking well. But somehow God pulls them all out of it, and there was Joseph. There, like I said, the golden ticket. There's their golden ticket. Didn't even, you know, they didn't deserve it. They definitely weren't counting on it. It came out of nowhere, and it was a promise from God, and it was God showing Himself and showing His glory to these people who remember that there's several years that, you know, at this point there's several generations past Abraham now. So Abraham was the one given the original promise, and these guys are still practicing the whole circumcision. They're still they know about the promise as much as they can know about it, but they clearly don't understand God and God's ways entirely. And in fact, these are probably the most uh, out of the stories that we've read about coming up from Abraham, these guys are probably the most detached from the understanding of God that we've come across. You know, Abraham saw God several times. He was real close with God. Um, and so was Isaac was there too. And Isaac seen him, and then even Jacob had seen him and come across him several times. But these brothers were, you know, a lot of them were kind of a bad little group there for a little, you know, and so they were the most detached. They were probably some, and they were, you know, some of the more, you know, Simeon and Levi, I remember, killed that whole village of people, and and of course the whole group of them basically got rid of Joseph and killed their own brother, basically, as far as they're concerned. So this is like I said, they're very detached from this promise and understanding of God's promise, and God is showing how kindly He treats these people. Even though they're not quite deserving, they were given a promise, and God made that promise. And remember, even with Abraham, when back in, I want to say it was something like Genesis, something like 18 or so. It was a while back, but God made a covenant with Abraham, and Abraham was asleep for that covenant. But when he woke up, he saw that the sacrifice had been burned, and there was the lamps there, and he wasn't there. But that night is when he had that dream. The horror had come upon him, and that horror told him that you rest assured that your people will um they will, you know, they're going to be like strangers in a foreign land, and that foreign land is going to mistreat them. But he says, but I will, and he says he's going to mistreat them for 400 years. And I'm pretty sure that was in, like I said, I don't remember if it was, let's see, it had to be quite a while back. Genesis 20, maybe it was in the 20s. I have to find it. But like I said, it came to be that, you know, he told them that they're gonna be there for 400 years, and they're gonna be mistreated for 400 years. And he goes, but God says that I will bring judgment upon that nation. So that horror that Abraham had that dream, you know, is now being fulfilled, or not quite being fulfilled, but it's showing how it's going to be fulfilled. We see them now that sure enough, they've all moved into Egypt. So this, like I said, Abraham is long gone, but God is still working through the prophet, is still fulfilling his promises. And he's bringing history along, and he's making these guys remember it. And this is the family that he shows, and this is just yet another sign for them to recognize. And Joseph was sure to let them know that God sent me here and I'm part of this promise, and we are given that promise, and we should not forget that promise. And so now it's a glorious time where things are looking kind of bad there. Uh, Here comes the famine, and here comes Joseph. Here comes God to the rescue. So that was Genesis 45. And like I said, what I'll go ahead and do is I'll go ahead and end this video here. Uh, so I'll just say please like the video and subscribe to the channel for um, chapter by chapter Bible studies. And yeah, God bless, and I pray that we all bless Jesus Christ, and may Jesus Christ bless all of us. Amen.